You use the untying knot skill?
I use conversational every
Like,
day. Socratic, more of the Socratic questioning, all that kind of stuff. Um, I find that it's the quickest way to get to emotion. It's not my theory. It's the only way to truly make changes is when you access emotions. So I try to get logic out of the way, but I haven't made the transition yet to longer sessions. So
yeah.
because your question was around breakthroughs, I think I get close. And then I feel like when we get to the next session, they kind of go, I was really deep what we did at the end. And I thought about a lot since last session, but it
Yeah.
feels like we got to go back to the beginning again.
I want to give you some feedback if I may.
Yeah.
I can't even let you finish your comment before I start talking. But one thing that's happening with you, and this is really it'll really help you to take this weekend's course because I do think that the skill we're learning today is the skill. And Felix, I know this is going to blow your mind because you're already doing a lot of powerful things with level one. But level one is not really the skill. Okay. Level two, I think, is the skill. And I'm going to teach you level three as well. So I don't think we had the complete thing going yet.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just say that to start. And I'm going to talk when everybody else joins us here about why do I teach it in this order? Why is so much missing from, the original package? But what I want to say about what you're saying is when you have this level two proficiency, which is just as easy as level one, you're going to have it in, 48 hours. Then you're going to understand better how the discovery call is actually the first session. Okay.
Hmm.
And that is a huge difference than I'll see you in session for 50 minutes at a time. Because what we're going to do is really tighten the whole process to really sell the speed element and not the undoing knots, hypnosis element. Okay, so the speed element comes first, and you need the level two skill to get the speed element, and you need to have that to have an effective priming, which is a discovery call and everything that precedes that. When you have that as the structure, you will not run into this thing of, oh, and I scheduled you for 6 visits, or I'll see you next week. Because
Hmm.
your mind still, Gilles, is like, well, I do the ACH or I do the conversational, but I'm doing it in the context of my regular visits. And
Hmm.
so it doesn't have that cachet of
Hmm.
you're on the spot right now.
Hmm.
And that is very important to those stunning transformations. And and
Yeah.
and let me just say one more thing. That is very important because you only get one shot at it. There's only one first time. It's like losing your virginity. Like there's only one first session with the hypnotist.
Hmm.
And so even me, when you know, when I'm selling it, I do prepare people for it will not feel the same the second through whatever number of time.
I guess the closest thing that I can compare it to
Yeah.
in terms of that structure. And because I purchased the Discovery Call block and see how you take that to bring it to the other, is in
Yeah.
my stop smoking protocol. Now, my
Yeah.
stop smoking protocol is still script based and it's from somebody else. However, you start with a discovery call, and the discovery call sets it up because I use all of their words in the session,
Exactly.
and that's what makes it powerful.
That's
And
right.
so
And
I
that,
guarantee my stop smoking for life.
yep.
And I've had clients say, it doesn't, it's great. Like it was really good, but it didn't feel like the first one. And I said, it'll never feel like the first one because
Exactly.
of how it's set up.
But that's the thing that's happening when you're getting to that point at the end of your first session where you're like, oh, I'm teetering on the edge of it. But then when you get them back on the second one, they feel like they have to
Sorry, we're
repeat.
getting some sound feedback. I don't know if it's someone's on speaker or maybe Jody. Hi. Try again, Maya. Sorry.
Um,
Yeah, you're good now.
that's why they don't have that same feeling on the second one. And you can never recover it. So that's the whole reason why it's costing you in terms of like impact and reputation to keep it organized at a 50-minute session when you don't have a 50-minute problem solving skill.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're shooting yourself in the foot basically. Because here you are advertising, oh, I have this new technology, oh, I can do it a different way. But really, you don't give yourself the full opportunity.
Hmm.
And so the whole thing is, it's not a big deal because you're just practicing using the skill, but it is a big deal when you're talking about getting to the 100K
Hmm.
because the smallness, of the touch with the client matters a lot. I mean, the limited amount of it. And so if it's not set up that way at the outset, it'll go on indefinitely. Like it just becomes regular armchair therapy with a different take on it, but it doesn't have that power to like transform in the moment. But that's the
Yeah, and I
whole,
can imagine that it's significantly different because of how you set it up and the language that you use about putting the logical brain to the side. And so you're much less likely to get objections, or you're pretty much limiting logic and setting it up that way. And again, when I do
exactly.
the,
It's
the
hypnotic
this
that way. Mhm.
yeah, when I do the discovery calls for the smoking program, that's how it's set up. Like this is how it's going to be.
Yep.
This is how it works most effectively,
And it has to be that way
and it has to be that
for
way.
all
Yes.
problems, not
Yeah.
only like any problem that you have. And
Yeah.
by the way, I want to say something too about your disqualification of logic. I'm going to say that level one is hyperlogical, actually. And I think that many analytical clients, like lawyers and doctors, who this was designed for initially, they are very easily hypnotized through logic. So it's like you can use the critical mind to hypnotize. It's not
Hmm.
it's not that we're trying to get rid of critical factor necessarily. It's
No.
just like each client is different.
Yeah.
So some you can do a lot more untying of knots level one. But then this is why we're here today, because some people just fucking hate that. Some people get very resistant to that. Or some people feel like, I think you've been noticing and using it, is like it works for a while, but then they catch on, or then they get sick of it, or then they get exhausted. And then you run out of steam or you run out of credibility, basically, because it's like, well, why, what's stopping you? Why aren't you doing that? And they're like, wow, you already asked me that, like that doesn't feel good. So there
Mhm.
has to be more. Moreover, as you've been watching me, in my sessions, you can see that that's not really all that I'm doing. I'm not just doing, so what's the problem? What's stopping you? What could you do instead of that? What would happen if your life was, untied? I don't do it that way. So what am I doing? That's the whole question. That's what we're here to learn today. Okay, Felix, and we're still missing a couple of people. Where is everyone? Okay, I'll give it another
The
minute.
same crew from 101 last time. It's great to see everyone.
I
But
know.
yeah, so my challenges have been like, so I had a full 2 hour session
Oh,
with
good.
just like the 101 skills, like just 1 or 2 weeks after, and it went
Okay.
great. But then after one, like the person said, everything worked for like 1 to 2 weeks, and then I went back to the
Right. Then
bad
it went
habits.
back. Hmm.
And the other thing is, I've been using it in more like, daily conversations with my colleagues, whatever.
That's the best.
I was at the office like I think 2 days ago with a colleague, and she received a text message from a friend who has like a very dark and crude humor. And she was like, "Oh, I'm so not good with that." And I was trying to show her like, what needs to happen. And she's like, "I need to tell him." And I'm like, "Yeah, but so what are you going to tell him today?" And she's like, "I have to wait." And in the end, like it was like, "Yes, but." And
Uh-huh.
so all of these right questions were making her realize that it's very easy for her to just message that friend. And if he doesn't react well, but it's not a good friend. But
Right.
she didn't get to that point of like with my sessions with you, which is like, okay, I'm going to change that. I'm going to do something. I'm going to try something new. And
But what
so
did
I
you
think that's what I'm
miss?
hoping
You
to get
missed
with
something.
102.
You missed something. Let's just pretend there is no level two skill, which there is, which will help you. But let's just pretend that it was just level one. So what did you miss to make it permanent? And let's just give it a caveat too and say, not everyone is a one-hit wonder. I mean, I have that too. Sometimes people do need 2 or 3 sessions or more.
I
That's
think
not
I was missing the motivation aspect.
okay. That's what we're going to do today. But there's something, but think about level one. Think about level one. There's a very important skill in level one. That's the long-term skill.
Be
You'll,
curious.
Testing.
uh-huh,
Testing.
what?
Testing.
Yes. So, Jill, what's the deal?
Oh yeah.
Testing?
Yeah.
Well, you have to test to make sure that whatever solution that they took will work in the real world. So you give a lower level of tests, and if they pass that, then you become more and more extreme, so that the brain becomes convinced that it doesn't matter what I face, I'll be able to overcome it.
And it's not only the brain becomes convinced, it's that when the person is in the situation that
Yeah,
obviously was going to happen, like, oh, I got the IRS letter and, now I want to smoke a cigarette. But then they remember, oh, yeah, that lady asked me what I would do in this situation, and I already solved it. So, Felix, one answer to problems that recur, especially ones that you solve like socially or, in passing, is that they haven't been rigorously tested. And they really need to go through like levels of testing. And by the way, now we're getting to explain too, why are people paying us big money for this? Because if you skip over any of these pieces, it doesn't work. It has to be a complete product. It has to cover all of these contingencies, and no stone is left unturned. Like I'm working my ass off, not because of my use of my intuition and my subconscious, which is also working my ass off, but because I'm doing such a big scan of everything all the time. I'm checking, are they lying to me? What's their emotional state? What's their energetic state? What kind of physical cues am I getting? What kind of answers am I hearing? And I'm scanning all of that at, millions of megabytes per whatever. And that's a lot. So what I'm doing in that situation that you're describing is I'm really feeling into how sure is this person? Are they going to leave and change their mind? I'll give you a quick example. I had a lady last week who actually ended up sending her daughter, so that was a good referral. $5,000, just from having one client. But so she came, she sat here 2 hours and 40 minutes. At 2 hours and 25, I was like, this isn't it. This isn't why you came. We solved all kinds of things. She was like, oh, I feel much better. I was like, I gotta tell you, I just don't feel it's complete. And I just said that to her. I just feel something is missing. What are we missing? And so then from 2:35 to 2:45, which is like, I'm very tired at that point, and so is she, we actually solved the reason she came, which is very delayed to me. Like that took too long. But the point of the story is if I had let her go with that feeling remaining in my body of, oh, there was something undone, then I would have had that same call, which would have been like 3, 4 weeks from now. I feel better, but something's still bothering me. So that's a two-part answer. Test rigorously and check in yourself. Did we cover everything? Have I done a complete job?
yes, and I think that change does occur because you said they don't change. I think they do. It's just it doesn't linger. That's what I've been told in the past, especially through script work. It was, I felt really good for 3, 4, 5 days. Sometimes you get a week, but then it
Yep.
kind of wore off. So
And why
it
does the
doesn't
script
have,
have that effect, Gilles? Why is the script like a 3-day cure?
because oftentimes I never ever tested. It was more
Well,
hope there. It was more hope therapy. I
I
hope
mean,
this works,
it's
you
actually,
know.
it's not hope therapy, it's bullshit therapy. It's making shit up therapy. It's like, okay, let me just tell you something that when your eyes are closed will bypass your critical mind and you'll believe it. Like,
Mm,
okay, why? Well, who said
yeah,
so? That's not true. Like, okay, one reason that might work is because we told them it would. And so for a few days, they were like, well, I hope it worked. But that doesn't actually go anywhere. It's very superficial, isn't it? Haven't you been hypnotized that way? I have, where they're like,
mm,
close your eyes, you feel so much better. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't feel any better. I feel just
right.
the same, but now my eyes are closing. You're forcing me to do something that I don't agree with. So now I feel actually kind of mad as well. Like, that's the honest truth of how that goes. I'm not saying it never works. Some people are highly suggestible, but the fact is, if you don't untie the knot behind it, it's not undone. Then you're just, as Tiani in our group says, putting perfume on a pile of shit, which does not work. Well, I don't know where our little cohort is, but maybe they're gonna watch later. I'm happy to have the ones of you who are here on a Friday. So thanks for joining me. Welcome to level 2. This is the Conversational Hypnosis School. I'm Maya Elephant. I'm not a medical doctor or a mental health care practitioner. I do not make any claims to cure diseases. Anything you hear in here is based on my clinical experience. So please keep it in context. I love this course that we're going to do for the next 3 days. To me, this is the course. I don't think level 1 actually stands on its own. Why do I teach it that way? Because as you saw, just learning the level 1 skill is so stunning, right? Like it's so powerful. If I put more information on top of what I just did with it, I mean, it took you guys like a couple months to even like decompress from that and like digest that, or at least it takes me like that. So if I just piled on more and more, it would just dilute the whole message. So I can't. But I'm really glad you're here now because without the skill from this weekend, I don't think you can address the same breadth of clientele. I don't think you can have the same degree of confidence that the skill is going to work every time. And I also don't think that you can really advertise the speed component because the question and answer from level 1, it can work, it cannot work. So, how is it that I'm so confident that the skill really works all the time? And how is it that it doesn't matter who comes to see me, whether they're a teenager, whether they're an older person, whether they're a lawyer, whether they're a school teacher? And how is it that people don't intimidate me, even if they object that hypnosis won't work for them, or even if they say, oh, I'm super highly analytical, I don't know if I can be hypnotized. None of those things bother me because of this course that we're doing right now. So it's an essential course. As I said to Gilles, also, the reason you really need this course is because the selling aspect and the transactional aspect of hypnotism, of the kind of hypnosis I'm doing, depends on this. There's no way to really sell this product using level 1. There's no selling in there. But this product that I'm doing today and for the next 2 days is the conversation that makes it possible to create that transactional feeling. So to me, this skill is essential for business. It's also essential for being able to do this work across the board without doubt. As you know, my course is casual. We're missing a bunch of people, so they're doing their casual thing. You can come and go as you please. The whole thing is recorded. So you can watch it later if you need to. Take a break anytime that you want. I will have a break in the middle of the day today for a good little half hour. There's not accreditation with this course. You're not going to get a diploma or a degree. This is just a skills course. You can ask questions anytime. We'll keep it casual. You know the protocol. Does anyone have any questions on what's happening? What we're going to do is just the same as level 1. We're going to do today the main skill building. Tomorrow, expand that skill building. I'll build a little bit more on it. We'll do demos both days. Day 3, I'm going to take it into the discovery call and into the business aspect. It'll still be the same message, underlying message, but with a view to running your business and selling. Any questions on the structure? Any questions on what we're up to? Okay. So I will say, unlike level 1, I'm going to delay our first demo until after I do the theory. So we are going to do theory for the next probably half hour, 45 minutes or so. Then we'll do a little demo, then we'll take a break, or maybe we'll take a break before the demo. So welcome to the Conversational Hypnosis School. This is 102. As Felix said, the main thing he was saying he was missing from his conversation so far is that element of motivation. Because what's the point of ACH? What's the point of untying knots? It's really what? You guys can say yourselves. What's the point of it? What do you do when you're asking questions that are level 1 questions?
Trying to
Well,
identify what the problem is.
Yeah, identify the problem, exactly. Dig into the problem, investigate the problem. What is that called?
Hypnotic interview.
Exactly, that's the hypnotic interview. Okay, and what's the point of that? What's the point of it? I can hear myself back on everything.
Jody, I don't know if you have earbuds, because I think
Yeah.
your microphone gives the feedback.
Oh, is it Jody? Thanks, Felix.
This is like ACH in space.
Can you hear the feedback also?
Yeah,
You can?
now
There you
it's
go.
better.
Much better.
Wait, that's weird. So Jody, if your volume is off, I can't hear it, but if yours is on, I can. So maybe you need to rejoin with some different audio so that you can participate, because I don't want you have to be muted the whole time.
Maybe like, earbuds with a mic that isolates it.
It's kind of weird. Why does it affect mine though? I've never had that before. So sorry, Jody, I don't know what to do with that. Well, let me know if I can help you. But so, okay, hypnotic interview. That was Jody's answer, which was the correct answer. Hypnotic interview. When you get an answer in the hypnotic interview, what are you doing with it? How are you gonna receive the answer from the client? What do you do with it in your head? When you first ask a question, what's the problem? You start digging into the problem. Then what do you do when you hear the answer? What's your first port of call? What are the basic principles of untying knots? There are 2 basic principles of untying knots from 101.
I want to say that you're looking for unconscious moments, but
Exactly. Perfect. You got the answer right. Exactly. So the idea behind the interview is twofold, right? One is what you said, gather information on the problem, because the problem is going to lead you to the source of where it was generated, which is what's going to untie it. That's number 1. You're right. But number 2, each time that you get an answer, you're studying what it is. It's an unconscious moment or it's a conscious moment, right? So that's the use of that level 1 skill. Just to identify, where are we? What is this client up to? But what we're going to do now is expand on that and add a whole element of motivation, which is leading in a whole different direction. When we're untying knots, we're looking for something usually that points into the past, right? Because it has something to do with, why did I get this problem? How did this problem get generated? But that has a limited interest after a while. So what we're going to do in level 2 is figure out, how do I also build this possibility of letting the client look forward into the future, into what's possible for them? That has much more to do with motivation and getting excited. What is the problem with always untying knots with people? Like, why would we want to add more options? What is the problem with untying knots all the time? Royce, and you know, because you've worked with people. What's the problem with always asking people, okay, so what's the problem? Why is that a problem for you? What do you want instead of that? What's stopping you?
as it becomes more like an inquisition rather than, a direction towards change.
Exactly. And what's the problem with an inquisition?
They get very resistant and frustrated and resist, and you get their resistance.
Exactly. It sometimes rubs people the wrong way. Sometimes it's picking up on their, resistance. Sometimes it's suggesting to them, hey, I'm gonna try to help you. And that's triggering what? Remember those two words that I tell you all?
Psychotic insight.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's triggering their psychotic insight. So it's very easy if you get into that kind of, why do you have the problem? Let's get rid of the problem. The problem is stupid. Into that kind of level one thing to trigger either their resistance or lose their interest, or it just doesn't go anywhere because they're like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Why do I have the problem? I don't know. What's stopping you? I don't know. So there's places you can't go. There are people who it gets under their skin. Have you noticed in yourself that it has the possibility also to just become annoying and repetitive to you?
Recording in progress.
Like there's only so many times, there's only so many times I feel like that we can do, well, what's stopping you? Before it starts to be like, well, that's kind of irritating and annoying. So the problem with untying knots is it has limits. It has that, you use the word inquisition, Gilles, which is why I did the magnifying glass, because it does have that kind of feeling of prodding, of irritating, and of let me help you. I can fix this if I just ask you some questions, right? This is the way I think of level one. It's like I'm teaching you a pitchfork, right? It's very strong. It burns. It's very to the point. It's why it's amazing. I will say it's like a very cool thing that you can ask people questions about their problem and by default have them reveal something to you. But it does have this ability to burn. And if it has the ability to burn the client, it also has the ability for you to get burned. So the problem with the Q&A and the problem with the level one is it comes in kind of hot. It doesn't address every single kind of client. It has the potential to trigger psychotic insight and then lose the client. And so it's kind of a narrow entryway into conversational hypnosis. So to me, that's like 10 or 15% of what's possible. So what are we supposed to do with the rest of our conversation? What are we supposed to do with all those exception cases? That's what we're going to talk about in this course. So why do we learn the burn first? I like that, Gilles, you said in your, intro remarks, you said you have to get to the emotion to help someone, right? Isn't that what you said?
Yeah.
That's what this picture is too, right? Like, what's the point of learning that skill of burning? What is the good of that? We already kind of said it. And it says so on the slide right now. As soon as you ask those interview questions, what's going to happen?
You're going to
Could go
trigger
internal.
unconscious moments.
Yeah. And how do we know that you're going to get an unconscious moment for inquiring into the problem?
Through observation.
Yeah, but why would the problem necessarily be connected to the client's subconscious?
Because that's where it's born.
Exactly, because that's where it lives. That's where it's generated. So there's nowhere else to go. So we know that if we start putting our attention on the problem, what's right behind it is the client's subconscious. So it's a very easy and direct way to learn how to access and observe the subconscious mind. Like Gilles just said, you observe it. What kind of things do you observe when you ask people about their problems? What kind of responses do they give you?
Well, they'll give you the verbal froth and fluff. But
Yeah,
while you're listening to the froth, you're looking for, eye movements or hand, all the unconscious physical.
yep. Did you know how to look for that and observe it before the hypnotic interview?
Are you talking about rapport building?
I'm talking about like observe, well, it is rapport building. Yeah, you're right. I'm just trying to establish like why would we want to investigate problems before we learn how to do hypnosis more generally? So one answer we're giving is, well, it's an obvious entryway into the subconscious mind. Is there some way that we would have known how to do that in an easy way prior to 101? I don't think so. Like, I didn't know how to do it before I did the hypnotic interview. So I'm just trying to show you that's why it's such an important building block skill. Because until you learn that art of the interview, you're not really sure what we're looking for. So level one is very much about just showing you through the interview, you can access the subconscious. Once you know how to access the subconscious, you can start to get very detailed in what you're observing. Those are unconscious moments. As you've seen through all the demos, everybody's subconscious appears in different ways. So what we're learning in that level one is, how do I catch the subconscious? How do I start to understand problems? And how do I build that rapport so that we can investigate it? But then what else is to be done? This is the next question. There's no reason why our inquiry in the subconscious has to be so obvious. Like, we don't need to be so heavy-handed, basically. After all, what we're doing is hypnosis. And that's funny, right? Because didn't I tell you in level one to forget hypnosis? I did. So now I'm breaking my own rules, because I do think what's special about this product is the fact that it's hypnotic and it's not armchair therapy. But how is level one hypnotic? It's kind of armchair therapy, right? So I think what's happening now is, as you expand what's possible, which I haven't shown you how to do yet, so if you don't know, that's okay. But as you do that, you enter into the world of hypnosis more and more, because we're no longer so, thanks, Royce, and I like that you're getting that. We're no longer so attached to just that examination of the client's response. Now we're moving into actually creating a client experience. Okay, so in level one, it's very much about, what does the client say back? And I catch that and throw it back. Utilization. Catch that and throw it back. Catch that and throw it back. But now we're gonna up level the skill and also create something for the client in which they can exist. That's where it's starting to become really hypnotic. Okay. And what are we adding? Like, this cute little kid is so excited to swim because his caregiver or mom or sister, whoever that is excited for him, is motivation. What do I mean by that? If you've already watched the videos, you know what this is about, but I'm going to take a couple steps back and say this. The engine of change in conversational hypnosis, this is the guy working on the engine, is the interview. That's the hypnotic interview. But the car that the engine lives in is motivation. Okay, so for the car to have a destination and get somewhere, the person needs to know where they're going. You need to have some reason to get in the car. Oh, well, we're going to Apple Pick this weekend, right? That gives you a reason to turn the engine on. If you just ask people to turn the engine on with no direction, it's hit or miss. So level one, engine. Level two, car, chairs, windshield, things around the engine, so that it can actually transport the big heart, the love, the life, whatever it is. The whole idea here is to have a vehicle for change, which is the interview, but also have a purpose for the client's life to move forward. So we burn the problem at the engine level, but we also create a whole destiny and a whole life from the motivation. The important part of learning to do this motivational questioning, which I'm going to show you shortly. Oh yeah, and by the way, have you guys all got the handouts? I emailed them to you yesterday. If you don't have them, I'll put them in the chat in a minute. But anyway, we'll get to those in a moment. The whole art of motivation depends on really letting go of the idea that you are going to create change. So I told you already in level one to let go of that persona of the hypnotist. But now we're going to go even further into that and really detach from doing therapy or even being a therapist. Instead, we're going to just make this a natural way to express yourself. You're going to break free from switching from that therapeutic, what's the problem? Why is that a problem? Even that has that therapeutic voice into it, into the most casual, most regular version of yourself. And you're still going to get to the client's subconscious anyway. That's really the beauty of this differentiation that we're doing in this weekend. So by letting go of all of your persona, all of your concept about who you're supposed to be, all of what you owe your client, you're going to become more and more casual. The questions you learn and the approach you learn this weekend is what allows that to happen. So it's going to become just the way you always are, think, act, talk. This is a cool person just being themselves. They're never going to need to switch ever again. You don't need to switch your persona ever again. Gilles?
I know this is just semantics, but if you can go to the prior slide
Oh, sure.
where it talks about not being a therapist. Um, obviously, for me, being a therapist for 32 years,
I know.
that's the detachment, that's the hardest. And we've talked about that
I
together before,
agree.
right?
Yes. Mhm.
And especially on the topic of motivation. And again, I don't want to take this so much into semantics, but I remember when I ran a youth group in Sarnia, and I had a lot of kids that were resistant to talking about mental health. So on the board, I wrote on one side, counselor, therapist, social worker, blah, blah. And on the other side, I wrote coach.
Yeah.
And I said, if you ever had a problem, who would you go talk to? All of the kids, average age 14. And I had 8 kids that were coming regularly. And they all said coach. So I said, first off, I'm offended, but why did you all choose coach? And
Yeah.
they said, well, because all of the people on the left tell me how much problems I have
Exactly.
or how broken I am.
Exactly.
And the one on the right, coach, they help me get to goals or they help me move forward in my life. They help me to pull forward my skills to get to where I need to be.
Perfect.
And so obviously after that, I got a designation of coaching. But when I was looking at that slide, it's moving away from therapist. And in my own practice as a registered psychotherapist, I'm moving towards more of the coaching model because there's
Exactly.
less limitations. There's so many limitations as being a registered psychotherapist in
Yep.
my province. Like I can't do videos that
Mhm.
promote me because I'm wearing 2 hats.
I
I
know.
can't do ads
No
because I'm wearing two
testimonials.
hats. I
Yep.
can't use test like all of that stuff. So all the model that you talk about, that Scott talks about in terms of being successful, I can't use a lot of that.
Yep.
Um, but on the coaching model and on the motivation that you talk about, it just kind of resonates that it's moving away from, even though our first question is, what's the problem? We're really looking at the problem is simply the teaser to get to the motivation. I really saw it when you were talking about it as why is the stick and the carrot so important? Well, the stick is about the past, but the carrot
Yep.
is about the future. And if we only focus
Exactly.
on the stick, the
Yep.
client feels like they're getting a beating.
Exactly.
So we have to understand what the stick is, but to move towards the carrot.
You nailed it. Moreover, even the whole what's the problem approach is still therapeutic. And
Mhm.
so that's the whole beauty of it is the way my office works, and everyone who's had a visit with me or, even with your own clients knows that you do not need to start hypnosis with what's the problem. You can start with, oh, what's the temperature outside today? Oh, did you have
Mhm.
a nice walk over here? And you can still get to the exact same place with the client truly not aware that any hypnosis is taking place. So that's the whole fun of this weekend is we're going to even leave the framework of what's the problem? Tell me about your problem. Because as you said, even that is always backwards looking. That, by the way, what you just explained so accurately is the reason this is a standout product. Because we're not just pathologizing. We're not just interested in, oh, let me tell you why you ended up with this problem. What we're interested in is whatever reasons you had your problem for, what do you want to do next with it? That's what hypnosis is really so special. What's so special about hypnosis?
Yeah, and even with the motivation stuff that you talked about before, like I've taught motivational interviewing, which is a clinical skill,
Yep.
but the visual is Muskoka chairs. Whereas therapy often feels like me versus you. I am
Yep,
the expert. I'm
exactly.
telling you how you're broken.
That's right.
Whereas motivational interviewing, very much like conversational
Yep.
hypnosis, is we're coming alongside. It's not a me versus you, it's an
Yes.
us together
Yes.
defeating whatever the problem is.
Well, I'm going to go back to the slides in a second, but while we're on this topic, this is part of what I wanted to teach you this weekend. So let's just do it right now. What's the difference between the root cause and the unconscious payoff? Because I think a lot of the time we're confusing these two things, but they're very different. And you can really tell level one from level two when you know what the difference is. Root cause versus unconscious payoff. And these are, by the way, one thing I'm going to add, this is important for you, Felix, is one thing I'm going to add this weekend is so far I've told you, just be curious. Just watch unconscious moments. Keep everything simple. But that's not true. Actually, what's going to happen is you're going to do that on the one level, but on the level behind where you're working, which now I'm going to get you back to work, is you're going to be always thinking, what is the root cause? What is the unconscious payoff? What are the clashing realities this client is presenting? We're going to be thinking these things in the background. But it's important to know why. Why am I focused on those? What's the difference between root cause and unconscious payoff?
Is it that one is more like I'm thinking the root cause is the emotion that holds you back, but the unconscious payoff is the behavior that's created because of it.
That's right. Okay, but let's go a little deeper for people who have not worked in these modalities before. Root cause is, what did you say? The emotion that got you into it?
The emotion that keeps you stuck.
Right. So root cause is why you got the problem to begin with.
Yeah.
Let's say you were, I don't know, beaten as a child, and then you were yelled at as a teenager, and then you had a teacher who made fun of you in high school. Well, those three things now line up. And see, this is where we start to get sketchy because how did those three things line up? Was it really those three things? I never know the answer to that. We're
Mhm.
always kind of conjecturing. But root cause is when we get into that neighborhood of, oh yeah, I know where that started, or oh, I know how I got that. And that happens all the time in these transformational sessions, right? Where they're like, "Oh, that reminds me." And you're like, "Oh, tell me more." Right? Because the client doesn't realize the connection, but you do. That's the whole point of having them talk. By the way, I think we often assume that it's obvious, but it's not obvious to the clients. That's the whole point of unpacking it, right? So the root cause is, oh yeah, I became afraid to go on the metro at 60 years old because when I was 12, my mother told me that she threw up one time and that I should always be careful when I get on the metro. That's a real story that I had in a session. A 60-year-old woman who's afraid to go out, who after 3 or 4 sessions, it did take her a while, ends up telling me some weird story about her mother and the metro when she was a young kid and vomiting, none of which added up or made any sense, but it's what her mind unfolded and spun out after COVID, after everything happened. So her root cause was literally a half a century ago. And then when I started to ask her, like, well, if you did throw up on the metro, would that really matter? Like, what would you do? Do you have Kleenexes in your bag? Like, tell me more. She starts to tell me, like, oh, yeah, None of that matters anymore. That root cause has totally been gone forever since I became an adult. So root cause can often resolve something for someone just for them to turn and look at it. What's the unconscious payoff on the other hand?
Well, there's some kind of hidden benefit to it.
Right, like what? What would be her hidden benefit, that lady's hidden benefit? What would be an example of like, well, why is she still not going on the metro now?
It doesn't
Um,
seem like they're linked. It's something else.
It's something else. That's part of what's weird about it, is it doesn't really connect back to the original problem, but she's still doing it, so she's getting a payoff. People only do weird shit because they're getting something for doing it.
Mhm.
So like
well,
with you, yeah.
it's kind of an excuse, you know. She
Yep,
wanted to go somewhere and she, oh, well,
exactly.
I can't because I can't travel on the metro. You
Right?
know, I have a phobia. So it kind of fits
Exactly.
in with that. It facilitates, you know, her not being able to get from A to B.
Exactly. It justifies her identity. It justifies her excuses. It justifies who she socializes with. It gives her all kinds of rationales for how COVID impacted her or didn't impact her. Are these all connected to the root cause in a direct way?
Are they?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, they are.
kind of. It's kind of a reach in a way. They are connected because we're still on the topic of health and survival or whatever, but not exactly. So this is the whole,
Well, it
you're,
becomes something else. Yeah, it's like
yeah,
her, it
that's
becomes
it.
an identity and her, it's like a preciousness that people like to hold on to.
Oh, that's a great, I love that that's a great term to explain it. It's a preciousness about why I'm fragile, why I
Yeah,
need to be cared
yeah.
for, why I'm not understood exactly. And so that's the whole question is knowing one from the other, because I think, as Gilles was saying, the therapist is always interested in the root cause so that they can say, like, well, this is what we found out about that. And now that you can move on with your life. But they're leaving out this huge, important potential conversation about, well, what are you going to do when you surrender this? What is your new payoff going to be? But that's where the motivation needs to be. Because if I take away their root cause, which is what I'm going to do with my method, and then they don't really have a good unconscious payoff anymore because we've undone that as well, what's going to happen in place of that? If I don't fill that void, what will it be filled with? Another
Mm.
problem, another excuse. So that's the whole question is. We're not doing therapy where it's just root cause. Let me tell you what the problem is. We're taking both of those theories. Oh, let me help you get to the knot and undo that. But let me also take you on a journey where when that knot is undone, something more can occur. Now you can see how this is becoming a much more puzzle piece kind of project than just curiosity, tell me what's going on.
Yeah, because I had learned to always avoid a void.
Avoid, avoid.
Yeah, like if you take something away, there's a
Right.
void there
That's right.
because the
Oh,
mind
yeah.
will find a way to fill it
That's
up
right.
with something.
That's right. Nature abhors a vacuum. You know that expression, right? Nature abhors a vacuum. So that means if we take away the problem, well, now there's an empty space there. What am I going to put in here?
Mhm.
Don't leave the client to go back to their regular life having taken the problem away. By the way, now we're also touching on what Jill was talking about before, which is why does suggestion therapy not last? We're back to the same answer, which is, and people will ask you this, so this is a good answer to give them. Well, it's really just, you know, giving you something without, giving you some reason to have that thing. It's like telling you, well, you're not a smoker anymore. It's actually just taking something away, but it's not telling you much about what's the point of doing that. What are you going to get out of that? It doesn't speak to the part of the self that wants to know, well, what am I going to get out of it? And I mean, yeah, some suggestion therapists or hypnotists are going to say, but I do say, and now you're going to get to run with your children. But that's kind of, what is the problem with that? The client didn't necessarily tell us that was their reason for wanting to do that. So if we start to read a script, which is like, oh, you stopped smoking and now you're running with your children and now you're breathing fresh air. I don't know that that's what the client wants out of that. That's really guessing. So that script reading thing is missing the motivation element, is missing the future element. So no need to switch ever again. You guys know that that's really my brand, is like the doc is in, look at how I look right now versus how I look on my social media all the time. It's all the same. Little t-shirt, little glasses, the hair, the smiling face, the filter. There's one recently where I'm like trying to wipe the filter off my face. It's really hilarious. No, I don't look that good in real life. But the doc is in is my kind of daily advertising and my daily way of connecting with my clientele. And I always do it with a little Snoopy. And of course, I have my Snoopy mug and my Snoopy blanket behind me. And so that's the whole idea of just being me, just regular. So that when you actually come to the session and sit in that chair, that's really what you're going to get. You really do get the Snoopy blanket, and you really do get me sitting over here looking exactly like this. If you meet me on Zoom, it's the same. And that's very important, you guys, for all 3 of you or 5 of you who are building businesses, to have this very dependable character that you are, because that's in the end what the clients are buying, is just the ability to come and work with you and sit with you. So you want to create that persona, you want to create that chill, regular person so that when they come in for the session, they feel wrapped in that, they feel that rapport instantly, and you've already shown them through your advertising, through your media, through your discovery call, who that is and what it's going to be like. That goes such a very long way in getting the process to go faster and getting the client to open up. So being yourself is a huge piece of level 2. It's not important to be official. It's not important to be credentialed. It's not important to be serious. So as we know, the hardest part is to stop trying and just be this hypnotic way instead. So you don't need to get anything. You don't need to know what's going to happen. Ultimately, as you know, I've told you millions of times, we don't know what's happening in these sessions. I don't quite understand how the transformations are occurring. So we're not going to concentrate on creating that. We're going to just concentrate on the conversation and making it smooth. Okay, so making it smooth is not the same thing as using the fiery method. That method is more like going for it. The smooth method is more of what this kid is doing, which is just like being immersed in it, feeling the experience, feeling the lightness of the client's subconscious. So this to me is the feeling of level 2. It's not that same, you know, point to point questioning of from level 1. Don't try to be good. Don't try to be right. Don't try to be wrong. Don't try to be anything. Do not plan how to get out of the problem. Do not force the clients. Do not think about what you should do. Stop working so hard. This is very important because this is the differentiating part of our business from all the other hypnosis businesses and also therapy businesses, is instead of imposing on the client, instead of telling the client what to do, instead of predicting what the client needs, we differentiate ourselves by doing this kind of black belt skill, which is waiting for the client and outreading the client such that we know what to do before they do. We know more of how to direct the conversation. So to do that, all we need to do is notice what happens. Just be regular, be casual, listen, stop trying to do everything else and impress them, and thereby speed up the process. Now, how does the motivation make it possible to do this differentiation? This new point of view is going to be combined with the untying of knots. So we're looking at 102 conversational hypnosis, motivational conversational hypnosis in the context of influence, communication, sales strategy. But all of that is training wheels when you realize that there is no right question, that there is no planning of questions, that it's not possible. This is the this is the standout star compared to the industry where you're not forcing the question. You're not deciding what the protocol is. You're not doing anything specific. That's you. This is everybody else. So what I want you to do now is slow the process down, okay? So we're not going to go for like as many demos as we can do and as many questions as we can ask. Instead, we're going to go slower and really study everything that's said inside of each session. The slower you go, the more you can integrate, the more you can allow time to really absorb this new strategy, which I have to tell you, I think it's pretty left field. Like, I think what we're doing right now is taking you on a whole new journey into a very much vaster part of the subconscious and the field. And so, what I want you to do as you get involved with that is become more conscious, not of the client, but of yourself. Okay, so become more conscious of yourself as you move through this weekend. I've told you this before, a little trick that I use and that I still practice with when I do my client sessions on Zoom is I watch myself talking. The client is like on a tiny little screen. Sometimes I make it big if I see them crying or if I notice something is happening that's significant and I want to study it. But like 90% of the time, I just keep them on a very small part of my screen and I watch myself because I know my own subconscious the best. So I can read my own the easiest. I'm not saying everybody can do that, but it's a tool that I've learned to get good at this slow down and integrate. Because when I'm studying the clients, I get a little bit interested in them, like who they are. But I lose track of their subconscious when I get interested in them. So what I'm trying to do is take the person out of it and just observe the subconsciousness in front of me. I know that's a very weird concept that I just said, but it's what I'm doing. Did that make sense to you? I take a client, like the character, their way they look, their mannerisms. I'm not that interested in that because that's still superficial. If I watch them for 2 straight hours, that's what I'm going to get very interested in. So I don't do that. I get interested in the feeling of it or the tone or something else. And the way I do that is by taking them somewhat out of the equation. So I want you to start to think about how to do that for yourself because that's how you're going to get super good at this skill. So instead of practicing just with one person now, as you have been doing, Felix has been doing with Gabby or whoever it is, I want you to now have teams of three people, which I know is more logistics, but it's really worth it. And the reason for that is so that one person can observe. Why is it important to do that? Even as a practice in your head, even if you don't actually go ahead and reserve a time for this, just imagine what it's like. The third person always is the one who's like, oh, ask them this. Oh, this is what should happen next. Oh, this is what you're missing. You know, you have that instinct, isn't it true? Yeah, Jody, right? Don't you always have that instinct of like, and what does that show you? I'll just pause right there and ask you, what does it show you when you study that part of your character that's like, oh, ask this. Have you ever noticed that when we're doing demos, people write into the chat, this is what it is. Ask them this. What is that?
Because they're not really busy thinking about the right question or the next part. So you're more observing, I think.
Yeah, and since there is no right question,
Right. I'm just thinking if you're the observer, just like it implies, you're more likely to be observing rather than in your own head.
And so
Right.
then, Gilles, when you're thinking to yourself, oh, ask this, or oh, you missed that, what are you noticing? What do you notice about yourself right there?
Mhm.
I
It's
know. I told
possible. It's possible that I stopped listening.
But what about that instinct to give advice or to tell the other therapist, hey, ask this? Yeah, what's up with that? Jody, is your volume thing still not working? Because I can tell you have an answer. It's not working. We just need to wait for the break until you can fix it. Do you want to type it in the chat? I know you know the answer. When you're hearing yourself doing that advice giving, what's really happening is, oh yeah, I see. I figured it out. This is very important.
Hmm.
I have nothing to lose. I'm not invested like a therapist. Okay, but there's something else. What you're noticing when you are having that instinct is your ego. You're noticing that you are still important, that you still think that there's something you know about what's happening. And that's why the observer position in practice is so important because when you're doing it in as the client or as the client or as the practice therapist, you're still involved in it to the point where you think that, what you're doing is right or important or whatever. But when you take yourself out and become the observer, you really realize that everything that you think in your head is still biased towards you. And that is the thing that we're really trying our best to let go of to make the transformations happen faster. So, a way to enhance your practice skill is to do nothing and just notice what happens. Look for the UMs, just practicing looking for UMs. And also, you can try, this might be fun for Gilles, for you, Gilles, try adding in the stuff you already know and see how it goes. See what happens. This is in a practice session. Because what you're going to find, I think, is the more stuff you try to add in, the more resistance you encounter. The more times you try to add something that is from your ego state, from your perspective, the more interruptions you create. So I want you to get good at that observation so that you can start to really see like, what is my instinct, my trained instinct doing that's not what I was taught in the hypnosis course. And the only way to do that is to observe yourself observing somebody else. Does that make sense? So, like I said, even if you don't end up doing it, even if you don't end up doing this 3-person practice, but you should, I really want you to, but even if you don't, play that mental experiment of why is it that even when I'm observing, I still think I have input. I still think I have something to add to this. Gilles, you nodded no. Did it not make sense?
No. So you're talking about point three? Try anything you can think of?
Okay, well, that's something I was saying just to you is
Yeah.
I think to convince yourself to really like when you're a trained therapist already and you know skills and you know coping mechanisms and advice you can give, go ahead and when your instinct tells you, provide it, add it, and see what feeling you get out of that. See what happens.
I'm laughing because for the last 6 months, I've tried really hard not to do that anymore.
Well, good. I mean, maybe you've trained yourself out of it, and if
Yeah.
so, then I would say keep going the way you're going. But what I'm trying to do with these 3 points here is prove to you your irrelevance, basically. Because the
Yeah,
more
like
you,
I
yeah,
like I have a student on placement right now, and she says, "You never try to put anything in there." Like I'm trying my best to try to fix, and I said, "Right there, that's where you went awry." As
exactly.
soon as you
Good.
try to fix, you're
Perfect.
going awry. Try
Perfect.
not to do anything, just try to listen
Yeah.
and
Don't
notice
even
what's
try
going
not
on.
to do anything. Just don't do anything.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, so assign to that student the three-person model so that she can see every time she gets the instinct to interfere.
Okay.
That's what the whole point of that little exercise is to train students out of that thing of, and I'm terrible at that. I mean, you can see how I do the demos. I have that real instinct to like, you know, but the truth is that all is still us not trusting the process. Okay, let's get into the theory for today. What you're looking at here is what happens when a client comes to you. This is the client with their problem. The orange is this kind of like thick shell they have around them that tells them they have a problem. The only kind of person who comes to see us is somebody in this situation because they are self-admittedly frozen where they are, stuck where they are. So what does this sound like? I've always been a smoker and I don't know how to stop, even though I want to. I have been trying to lose weight for 30 years and I just can't. It's like stuck ideas where the person thinks their problem is a part of their identity and there's no openings here. There's no way to crack this little shell. What we know from our hypnotic perspective is that there are ways out. Those are the green dots. Perhaps they take some distance or time, but the closer these get to this person here, the sooner they're going to feel better. So the only thing we're ever trying to create in our sessions, this is so important. The only thing we're ever trying to create in our sessions is this feeling here, where the client has choices. That's very different than, oh, I'm a non-smoker now and I'm gonna, open a spa and one solution kind of idea. No, we're not looking for that. What we're looking for is for the client to sit in front of you and say, oh, I didn't think of that. Huh, maybe there are some different things that I could choose. That is the whole cat's meow, is when they have options. I'm going to give you a short anecdote about that. I've been working with somebody over the past 6 months on cocaine. You got to be really careful when you're working with a very sticky drug like that because I'm not 100% sure hypnosis can do it. It's a very sticky drug. But so I'm just giving you a warning. Think about it. Make sure the person has medical background, I mean, medical support and all of that. But what has happened with this client is they've gone from being a daily user to 3 months later sitting down in my chair and saying, with tears, with the whole, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I haven't fully quit yet, but now I have a choice every day. So now I can look at it and say, nope, I'm not going to do it today. And this was the turning point, of course, where the person realized I'm not an addict. I'm not an addict. I'm just choosing to use this addictive thing every day. Right, Jody? Isn't it such a huge difference, that moment? So it's not, the goal is not, oh my gosh, I'm never, gonna snort a line again. It's never, I'm cured and now I'm, going on to become a yoga teacher. Like, no, that's the extreme fantasy that we have. But that's not the purpose of the person coming. The purpose of the person coming is that prior event that I just talked about, where they sit down and say, I have a choice in this matter. And then you can start to leverage their motivation as to, well, which choice do you really want to go with? So this is all we're going for. This is the purpose. How are we going to do this? Well, now we're getting to the crux of why motivation is so important. Person calls you with their problem. What are we going to do to get them to this point where they're open to change? Well, we're not going to untie their problems on the call because then they're A, not going to buy it, and B, we don't really have any support for them. So what we're going to use instead is this motivation juice. And the motivation juice is what we're going to learn for the next 2 days. And it's what creates this possibility for the client to consider change. This consideration of change is the only way to get to this possibility later. If they never go through this red circle possibility, there's no chance to take them here. How are we going to create this openness in them is to leverage their own reasons why they want to change. So this is what we're going to do on this discovery call. I'm going to tell you about this on day 3 in detail. If you don't know what I mean yet, don't worry about it. I'm just giving you an overview right now. So what we're doing is client comes with their problem. We use motivation. Now they have in their mind this idea that they can change. Now 2 things will happen. What do you guys think the 2 things that are going to happen are? You motivate them to change on the discovery call, then there's two effects of that. Right, Jody. Either they buy it or they don't. So number 1 is either I collect money or I don't. So the motivation is leverage to get paid. Number 1. It is a transaction. That's very important. But what happens number 2 is actually what I'm focused on right now. Well, I don't want to say that. I'm focused on both. But there's more. This is the payment. Yes, this is good. We like this. This is our paid clients who are saying, okay, well, if you can get me to this change, I'm going to give you the money. But also, what happens then on a hypnotic level? On a psychic level? Yeah.
If I'm looking at the graph, it's either that the change is immediate or change occurs with choice. Meaning change might occur, like the example you gave the cocaine client, that there has been change in thinking, not change in behavior yet, but they see that they have choice.
Yeah, you're on the right track. Exactly. And that's an interesting observation. Maybe the graph isn't clear enough, but this little circle up here, the little group, orange circle of change, is the client absorbing the idea based on this conversation that this is possible for them. That's why that discovery call is so very valuable, because when they start, a lot of the time they're like, well, I'm a smoker and that's how I've always been. But then they leave the discovery call thinking, well, I've always been a smoker, but this lady says it's possible for me to not be a smoker anymore. And then what does the subconscious mind do with that idea, even if it doesn't accept it or agree with it?
It buys into the idea that there could be change or choice.
Exactly. It just like, even if it doesn't buy in, which we want it to, if we do the motivation call correctly, then it fully buys in. And then the first session is so easy because they've already bought in. But even if you don't get that 100% conviction, the effect of the discovery call is this little box opening. Is just this little possibility. Well, she does have a good track record. She does have a lot of credentials. It does seem that a lot of people have changed. She was very convincing. She did answer all my questions. She does seem to understand the mind. That's the way the client is thinking when they leave, if you do your job right. And now they're thinking, actually, maybe change is possible for me. Why is this so very important to motivate them into this possibility before they even do the session? So that when they come for the session, you've already prepared the outcome. That's what hypnosis is, you guys. That's so important. Hypnosis is not just, oh, you come for the session, I untie the knots and motivate you in the meantime. Hypnosis is the outcome is set before you even show up. I'm holding the outcome, me, the hypnotist. That's my job. And I'm going to show you why my conviction is true and correct based on my experience by sharing information, which is motivational. So I'm the one who's opening this box for them, and they're just coming into it. That's the discovery call. Now that they have this opening for change, what's happening between the time they have the discovery call and their first session? What's happening? They're doing my job. The job is already happening. Processing is happening without me having done jack shit except for the discovery call. which is a lot. I shouldn't say it's jack shit because it's a lot. But that's the whole idea is I have begun the processing prior to the session's beginning. The choices are already more proximate. Do you see how they moved closer? Just based on this motivation. This is what makes it an MOS model. This is what makes it really fast. MOS, you guys remember what that means? Minimum optimum service. It cannot be a minimum optimum service if there isn't this piece to it. Because then I'm back to where the therapist is, which is, well, why do you even have this problem? Which is so annoying and boring and not forward looking. So the point of the motivation at the outset is to elicit change in the client before you even work with them. One thing that happens to me quite regularly is people come to my discovery call and then they say, it's so weird, I already felt different, or I feel different right now, or like, are you hypnotizing me already? And I'm thinking like, that's powerful because I'm really not. But the strength of my questioning is so motivational that their mind is already onto problem solving without me ever even having done, what's the problem? Let's do the hypnotic interview. So you see how now I'm saying we got to go back a level out of the hypnotic interview, which is our strongest little tool at the helm of problem solving. But actually what we want to do is make our job easier by stepping back a level, taking a broader view, and making the whole thing simpler and faster by going with something positive and forward looking, which will incentivize that problem solving later. That's how the subconscious mind works. It will backwards rationalize, it will come up with something backwards from the outset backwards if we give it something like throwing a toy to a dog, right? It'll bring the toy back. But that's the same thing we're doing in the discovery call is like, here, let me throw your toy into the future. That's motivation. And then the client's subconscious goes and gets the toy and runs it back to you. And then during the session, they're like, oh, yeah, I do feel better. Well, that's because I threw the toy to begin with. You get that? That's a lot different than let's just start with digging into your problem. Because now we've created a lot of context and a lot of dimension for the client. So, because I've set it up that way, I don't feel pressure when the session begins. That is really the key to the more powerful transformation is as long as we can afford the client new choices, as long as we can solve their ability to not have a choice, which begins on the discovery call with the motivation, then the context of their problem is not important to me, no matter how big or small it is. So I don't feel pressure. I'm never looking for an outcome. I'm always just looking for the unconscious moment. Once I find the unconscious moment, the outcome will create itself. So what we're doing is what this kite surfer is doing, which is detaching from client's problem, size of the problem, category of the problem, caring about the client. I'm going to talk to you more about that this afternoon, how to not care. Prearranged techniques, scripts, conclusions to where the problem came from, which is, as you know, the root cause, how breakthrough should look and sound. All of that is irrelevant because once the problem is not perceived in the same way, then the choice opens up. That's where the problem no longer exists. So we want to drift through the sessions instead of direct them. If you feel that you're directing them or that you're managing them, go back to this feather and drift. Now, what are we going to do about the fact that not every question gets an answer that reveals a knot? That's a problem from level 1. You can ask a question and you get, I don't know, or you get a non sequitur, or you get irrelevant information, or the client goes off on a tangent, or you get an answer that's totally not what you were expecting. So then what? What do you do when it's like confetti and you're like, oh, fuck, I don't know what to say at all. I have no idea what to do. That is where the motivation becomes the secret tool to everything because there's always a question that can be asked there. So sometimes the clients are excited, sometimes they're looking forward, sometimes they do know why they're there. Like, I have to be in a wedding in a year and I need to lose this weight, so I can wear the dress. Very often the clients are clear on their purpose, but they don't know how to get there. Not everything is about problems. So this is why we're here today, is to talk about the rest of the time. This girl looks a lot like me, but she's not me. But she's wearing her Ranger glasses because what she's telling everyone is you don't need to just solve problems. You can also motivate. You can also have fun with the client's rest of their life because they're not just their problem. They have other interests. They have an other persona as well. So that's what the course is about today. How to use that. Gilles already helped me to kind of explain this to you when we talked about root cause versus unconscious payoff, but let's look at it again. Client has a pain, right? That's when they come to you with. When they reveal why they have that pain, usually we're doing ACH. We're asking them to dig into the problem. So as we said, this is a backwards moving project. It's always looking into the past. At some point, that examination of the past may or may not reveal a solution. The converse of that, or let's say the correlate to that, or what's coextensive with that, is the pain can also lead us into some decision to get out of this pain. But how do we get there and actually complete it is we need to use some kind of motivation. The motivation is looking forward. So we're always in this place here in the sessions, which is I have more than one option, but I have kind of two directions that I can go. Backward looking into the therapeutic Q&A or forward looking into the motivational possibilities. As we can see, these are connected, right? Because depending on where the client goes and how much talking they need, they might circle around this more than once. They might circle around this more than once. They might do one of these and three of these. They might do one of these and three of these. We don't know. But that's the whole thing is we don't always need to be caught in the blue. Now we have more opportunity to move around. Let's talk about what it really sounds like because it's simpler than it sounds, actually. For example, I want to get healthier for my kids as they are my life. That's something somebody will tell you on a discovery call. Why do you want to lose this weight? Well, I want to lose weight so that I can run with my kids this summer. Instead of tell me more about why you have that problem. When did that problem start? What is that problem costing you? Which would be the direction of 101. Instead, we're going to ask them something about what they volunteered their goal is. Oh, so you really want to get healthy for your kids as they are your life. What do you mean they are your life? Do you see how that's an extension of motivation rather than an untying of a knot? This is exactly what you would want to do, not only in the session, but especially on the discovery call. Oh, so tell me more about your kids. You can even ask a more simple question like, how old are they? Is it a boy or a girl? What do you like to do with that kid? Do you see how casual that is too? Do you see how unobtrusive that is? Nothing to do with how did you gain the weight? How long have you been overweight? What do you like to eat? What times of day do you eat your shitty foods? How much is that costing you? Is it worth changing? Is that important to you? It's like you can really go far with that in a very small amount of time, but it's painful. But this is so much easier. Oh, so your kids are your life. How old are they? Oh, that's nice. What do you like to do with them? What did you guys do last weekend? Was that fun? You want to do more of that? What do you want to do with them in the future? You see how the feel of that is so different? Do you see how much more gentle it is? More tender? More mama soul dog? It has none of that. Well, tell me now. So what does the client say back to that? Well, if I'm healthier, I can set a better example for them. And then what does the client say after that? But I just struggle with healthy eating and I feel so disappointed in myself. I really want to eat that cake. And then what do you do when you hear them say, like, yeah, it would be so fun for the kids. I really want to. I really want to take them to Paris next year and be able to walk up the Eiffel Tower. But I love cake. Then what are you hearing when you get that? Oh, but I love cake.
Or not.
What are you, pardon? A not, right? Exactly. And what would you do, Jill, when you hear a not?
Level one.
Exactly. So how will you decide based on the client's response if you do a motivational direction or an untying of knot direction? How do you decide which to follow?
My first instinct is there's disappointment there, so there's the bringing up of a negative emotion. So it would
Yeah.
make me go towards the past
Okay.
rather than towards motivation.
Right. And how did you know which one to use?
Because there was the mention of a negative emotion.
Right.
I
The
struggle with healthy eating and feel so disappointed in myself.
exactly. So the client said, oh, well, the motivation was good for a moment there and I got excited, but I still have a problem.
Mhm.
Exactly.
They're highlighting it for you.
That's it. So that's exactly the process is, oh, look, a motivation question. That was helpful. And then the client reveals another problem. Okay, now I have to untie this knot. But maybe this client wouldn't have said, I just struggle with healthy eating and I feel so disappointed. Maybe they would have said, yeah, and there's a birthday party coming up that I could, you know, be the whatever for if I lost the weight. Then I can just ask another motivational question. Oh,
Mhm.
so when's that birthday party going to be? Oh, well, what do you want to wear for that party? How's that going to feel to you? So it just depends on what she says back to me or he says back to me. If they say something like, yeah, let's build on that motivation. That was cool. I'm going to build more. But if they say to me back, yeah, but you're not listening to me. I have a problem. So that keeps me from my motivation. Then I know, okay, if I keep motivating, I'm just going to piss them off. So I'm going to go back to untying. So now you're starting to have a menu, right? It's very different than just untie, 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 untie. Now it's like, oh, I have options. I can have a more genuine conversation based on real life things. That's what we're going to be practicing for the next 2 days. That skill right there. That's what I just said. So now you have a much wider range of questions. You have a much bigger menu. I'm going to give you more categories and more theory on this menu. But for now, I just want you to think about expanding the menu in terms of I don't always have to solve a problem. I can also ask questions that lead the client towards their goals. So this is the ultimate goal of learning level 2 and level 1, of course, is you become a master of knowing when it's going to be motivation and when it's going to be untying of knots. So that every conversational, natural, therapeutic becomes motivational and healing. Over time, you'll control it in such a way that the clients will become so motivated to hire you that they won't realize that they're solving problems. That's the MOS of the MOS. I love it when the client says to me, oh, I feel so much better. When are we going to do the hypnosis? That's the MOS of the MOS. When are we going to do the hypnosis? Well, you said the problem is gone, so what would we do hypnosis for? That's exactly the goal. The client doesn't know that they're untying their own knots. It's the ultimate bypass of psychotic insight. And it's the ultimate bypass of you having to worry about how to get there because you're going to do it all through client-led indicators of, oh, that's exciting and I want more motivation, or, oh, that's a problem and I want it untied.
And I guess you return back to the importance of the discovery call because, like, as you said that, I'm thinking if I was a client And I guess in my head, there's an expectation of what hypnosis looks like, whatever that might be. You've clarified what it looks like for you in the discovery call. Because my thought is, well, if I didn't think you did hypnosis, well, now I'm expecting the hypnosis, where I'm just out cold or whatever the expectation is. But I know that you talk about that in the discovery call because I've seen it.
Exactly.
And that's why it's important to set it up that way.
Exactly.
Because if we didn't do that work and they said, wow, this is great, I'm so excited, but when are we going to do the hypnosis? There'd be a level of disappointment there because it's like, but you, whatever the expectation is. Well, you didn't wave a watch in front of me, or you didn't tell me to close my eyes, take a deep breath, and from my toes all the way up kind of stuff.
Yep,
But you
exactly.
set it up in a discovery call.
You got that exactly right.
Okay.
And again, now we're back to why this level 2 skill is the skill, because this is what the discovery call is made of. Is that kind of casual conversation where I'm using this level 2 skill to just ask the client why they're there, what would be fun about this, what do you really want out of it? And based on that kind of banter, I can also prepare them for the session, for the result, for the ultimate conclusion, which is them giving me a review. All of that I've already stated is going to happen in the discovery call. And the only reason I can get away with that is because I'm using this level 2 chatty motivational skill.
So do you do it in a playful way? Like if they were to ask that question, wow, that felt so good. So when does the hypnosis
Exactly.
start or whatever? How do you answer, like, what do you respond?
Well,
Like, is it a playful way, like, well, we've been doing hypnosis the whole time? Or like, how would you answer that if
well,
that was the question?
the first question I want to answer is, do I do it in a playful way? And the answer is absolutely. Everything is playful, including your trauma in a certain way, not in a mean, like I'm
Yeah.
dismissing it way, but everything is motivated for me from the point of view of, well, what's going to happen when this is over? So everything has that kind of somewhat lighthearted feel to it, which exactly is what you said differentiates from a therapist who focuses on the problem. If you're focused on the problem, then you're never going to bring that fully lighthearted feel to, well, life sucks and everyone has problems, but what are you going to do with that? Which is my feel. That is the hypnotic feel, right? So partly I just want to say absolutely the answer is always stick with that as much as possible without being disrespectful. But the answer to the question of like, well, what do I do when they ask me that is I always just come back to, well, how do you feel? Which
Feel
is
great.
ETM. Emotional
Uh,
transfer method. How do you feel? And what are they going to say if they just came through a session with me and they never got hypnotized, but their problem is resolved? They're always going to give me the same answer, which is something like, I feel weird, I feel, high, I feel funny, I feel confused, whatever it is, and then I just utilize that. Well, did you expect to feel that? And then they're going to say something like, no. Okay, well, maybe that's the hypnosis then. Or sometimes I just bring their attention to the hypnosis, which is like, I can feel it in this room. Can you feel it? I can feel the sentiment of it. I can feel the stars in my eyes, which is how I feel hypnosis, by the way. I'm being genuine. And then I say to them, do you observe anything? And then they'll say something like, yeah, that's true. I do feel that. So I just bring them back to the feeling of it. Like, where's the problem? I don't know where the problem is. Well, where did it go? I don't know. Okay, well, do you think the hypnosis had something to do with that? Maybe. And then they're like, oh, that's weird. Maybe it does. So
and again,
everything,
we can reference back to the discovery call. Remember, we
exactly.
talked about this in the discovery call.
That's right. Everything is utilization, remember? Everything is utilization. Any answer
Interesting.
they give me, I'm going to take it back to that's what we talked about. That's exactly what we were expecting. I already said the problem was going to go away one way or another. Exactly.
Okay.
So bring it back to how they feel. And also, as you said, rely on your preparation. Good questions. I like those. Okay, so should we do a little example? Oh, yeah, my images. So, based on this combining level 1 and level 2 motivation and therapy, the the sessions feel different to me. Sometimes it's like this. This is the feeling I get, is like, oh, I'm just flowing through this person's subconscious and their motivation is like pulling me. Sometimes I feel more like, oh, we're floating around, it's not, doesn't have a lilt to it. Sometimes I feel more like the motivation is just like, and they're like, lift off, let's go. Sometimes I feel more of this logical client where I'm like, problem, 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 ACH, ACH, ACH. Sometimes it's more like that logical client. And I know it's like a little hard for me to explain what I feel through images, but I just want to show you like this is very different depending on who you're sitting in front of. Some people are way, way, way on the motivation scale. Some people are way, way, way on the problem solving scale. I had a Russian lady recently who was doing rage. Well, that girl she was just so logical. She was just so categorical. She was all therapy. So to me, she was like so much of this. But then sometimes I have a client who's like, oh yeah, I feel much better. Oh yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, yeah, problem is gone. Okay, boom. That's fine too. So whatever this is based on the personality, character, and the genesis of the client's problem. And there's like millions of pictures I could put here. But the point is now you can do any of those. Now you can go to any of those images or places. So it's like a menu where you can fill your taco with whatever you want. That's why I have the taco picture here. So it's like pick your own, like when I put out stuff for the kids and they put their stuff in the tacos on their own and I don't have to worry about which one they pick. That's what this is now too. This journey with motivation has much more possibility, more places to go. So I'm going to prove it to you and then we'll take a little break. Does somebody want to, I guess, I don't know. How are we going to do this if some of you don't have audio? It's only Jody who doesn't have audio. Okay, let's do this. You can probably fix it at the break though, right, Jody? Because I want you to be able to participate. I just saw your comment in the thing. I feel like this is Mac on steroids. Yeah. What? What part? What is Mac on steroids? Oh, this course? Mm-hmm. Thanks. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's do a little demo. Does somebody want to just volunteer? I'll do it. How about that? So that we don't need two people. Just to be the client for a moment. It'll be like 10 minutes. We're not going to solve the problem or anything. And just as a reminder of the demos, they're not meant to solve problems. They're not meant to be therapeutic. The demos are all experiential, experimental. You can't go wrong. So feel free. Go ahead and volunteer. Does somebody just want to be the demo client for like 10 minutes so I can just do a example? What I'm going to do is read the who and what questions directly off the sheet without any level one. I'm going to do just motivation. Do you guys all have the sheet?
Is that
So you should have gotten it in your email. Oh, who is that, Royson?
Yeah,
Here it is. I'm
hi.
putting here it goes.
Can you put it in the chat, Maya? I don't think I have it. Oh, great. Are they the motivational questions?
Okay, so let's just look at them and then we'll do our little demo and then we'll take a break. So 102 handbook is, I try to make everything printer friendly so that you can actually use these as your cheat sheet. So the 102 handbook is large print of the questions. There are 70 new questions for you to use. There's also some theory and, a summary of the slides today. But the Soulsway method level 2 questions. I love this sheet. Let me just share it. I love this sheet because look, everything is on one page, which they're very tiny, small, but this is 70 questions on one page. So I highly recommend that you print them and have them as your cheat sheets in front of you. So my cheat sheets when I'm doing my actual sessions, which I don't really use much anymore, but I used to. Well, I still use them. But so I have my level 1. They look like this. I could reprint them, but they have like special emotional value to me now since I've been using them since I opened. So they're like a mess, but that's okay with me. I even have like a gemstone up here, one of my kids put on. But then I also have in the background this one, which is like tattered and a mess. Look at it. But it's so funny because this one I use the most. This is the level 2 Q&A. And so when somebody goes into one of these categories, like the who category, when they start talking about who's the problem, I just look over here at the who category and pick questions from here. So I want you to print these out and have them available to you when you're working with your clients. And so what we're going to do right now is take that cheat sheet and just look at the first 2 categories, who and what. Just as an experiment. There's no point to this other than it's didactic for teaching. So does somebody want to just volunteer for like 10 minutes so I can ask you some questions? Okay. Gilles, you want to do it? I won't change the screen because we're just doing a little practice right now. So normally, how would we start this?
What's the problem?
Exactly. So I'm not going to do that because not every client is open to that and it's not necessary all the time. Also, what are you supposed to do when somebody comes on like session 2 or session 3? Are you going to say to them, what's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem? That sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? So what are you going to do on your second session? Are you going to start with what's the problem? I see Jody typing, so I'm waiting. No, you're not going to start with what's the problem in the second session. What are you going to say instead? How are things going? What's been happening? Tell me what's been going on since I last saw you. Or maybe they were going to go do a presentation last time and they said, it'll be on, yeah, how are things going? Exactly. Or maybe you remember, oh yeah, they were going to have a party or they were going to have a presentation. So they sit down and you say, oh, how did that thing go? How did you feel about the blah, blah, blah? It doesn't have to start with what's the problem. So that's what I'm going to do with Gilles. So Gilles, nice to see you. What brings you here today? What brought you to my course?
What brought me to my course?
See, he already had a subconscious moment. Did you see that? He was like, oh, I wasn't expecting her to ask that. Do you see how just the fact that it's an unexpected question is so effective? It's so funny too, because the frame is so obvious here. Gilles is a therapist. Gilles knows we're doing a hypnosis demonstration. Gilles understands that I'm searching for unconscious moments, and yet I just asked one little question. What brings you to my course? And look, he's already having his, I don't know, let me think it up. Let me think it over. So this fractionation happening right now. And you can see it. Right. Go ahead.
So I want to acquire better skills because, like I said, I want to move away from the therapeutic model and into the coaching model, specifically with couples.
Yeah, all I'm doing is reading from the sheet, you guys, upper 2 corners, upper 2 categories. So I'm just picking randomly. So what is at stake here? There you go. Do you see it?
Sad
Conscious
stake.
moment. There you go. Big sigh, big look to the right, triple blink. Person.
It's moving from something I have a lot of certainty to something I don't have as much certainty about.
Moving from
32 years compared to 6 months.
That's what's at stake for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and so who benefits from that?
Clients.
The clients benefit? Anybody else?
And me too. And me too.
Okay, and you two benefit. So what are your strengths and weaknesses?
My strengths and weaknesses. I think I've done a better job at being a good listener, not solving problems anymore, moving away from the therapist hat. Weaknesses is still fear and belief in the model.
And who made you believe that?
My fear, lifelong belief that when you have stability, especially financial, you don't go in an opposite direction.
So what's happening right now is he giving me motivation as an answer, or is he giving me a problem to untie as an answer? What do you think that was, Gilles?
Problem.
Yeah, exactly. I asked a motivational question and he gave me as an answer, well, I was motivated for the first 5 seconds of your inquiry, but now I'm facing a problem to pursue that motivation. So he's telling me what he wants next is for me to dig into that fear and help him with that fear. Did I start by asking him, well, what's the problem? Why are you here from a problem point of view? No, I just asked him what brought you to my course. But already 3 questions in, he's like, oh, here's a knot. You want it? So what's the best case scenario for you? I'm just reading off the list again.
Best case scenario is I become proficient in the model, have better outcomes with clients, and financially move to a better place.
And what's really driving you towards the school?
Freedom.
Freedom's driving you towards the school? Is there another alternative? I'm just reading. That's number 4.
Well, I could be to continue the model that I'm currently using and feeling overwhelmed because I see on average 16 to 20 clients a week.
Wow, that's a lot. So what things have you asked yourself when you see people who aren't doing it that way, the 16 to 20 a week way?
There's not many that I see that don't do that, that have the income bracket that I have. So it's the old work harder, make more money. It's not the other way.
And what makes that a problem?
Less time and energy for things that matter, like my 10-year-old son.
Right. So what kind of answer is that? Motivational or problem?
Mm. There's emotion there because the emotion would be more guilt. So
Yeah.
less time for Dominic. It's not necessarily less time because I structure it that my time is
Right, you have.
available,
Yeah.
but it always
That's
seems
present.
like I'm rushing. I'm rushing to another rink. I'm rushing to work. I'm rushing. Every day feels rushing.
Exactly. So
No
to
time to
me,
breathe.
I totally appreciate how you could give the answer that that's a problem, but actually what that's screaming is motivate me into my new reality based on my most important feature, which is Dominic. So my next question there, if I'm really gonna be true to what I'm teaching you right now, which is use the most obvious thing that the client is giving you is, well, what will it feel like to not be rushing? See, now I had to leave the sheet because I'm terrible at just following the sheet. But what would it feel like to not be rushing so that Dominic could have more of your attention?
I'm not sure because this has been normal.
That's right. Exactly. That's
So I'm
exactly.
not sure what that would feel like.
I'm not sure what that would feel like.
Yeah.
And now if I go back to the sheet, oh, what emotions do you want to experience?
Well, it's not necessarily an emotion. It's having that freedom. Freedom is an emotion. It's feeling lighter and
So what exactly do you want?
the ability to have choices.
Right. The ability to have choices. So have I been using 101 questions or 102 questions here?
Are you asking me?
Anyone?
Why don't you?
Yeah, how do you know?
Because they're not geared to a problem, they're geared to just a conversation.
Does it matter in terms of you revealing where your problems are anyway?
No.
It doesn't matter. That's all this little tiny demo is meant to show you is just from reading deadpan without any emotion. I wasn't even really connecting the questions together. He's still going to reveal to me, hey, this is where my problem is and I need help. Why is that? We'll take a break after we talk about this. Why is that? That even emotion or even motivation driven questions lead you to admitting your problem in the end.
Well, it's the loop in the graph that you mentioned before,
Exactly.
that we can't look towards the future without looking at what are the subconscious blocks or the hidden spots or the blind spots that I can't seem to resolve that will propel me towards choice.
That's exactly the right answer is the mind is connected. So everything that's happening, our goals, our hopes, our desires, our future is connected to all the beliefs we have in the past. So no matter where you kind of like stick the pin in, it will activate the circuit, which will eventually light up the whole circuit and take you back to, but this is the reason I can't have that. But this is the reason that this is not possible for me. I could have gotten there just by asking the person, well, what's the problem? Why is that a problem for you? That would have been like the burning way to get there real quick. But I just showed you that in a 6-minute conversation, I can just ask, well, what brings you to the course? And why would that be fun for you? What do you want to enjoy from that? And already right there, he tells me the exact same thing as if I had said, what's the problem? Which is, I need more time for my child. I want to be more focused. I want to not rush anymore. I'm getting exhausted with my current business model. I'm afraid.
Mhm. Because I remember when I was practicing with someone in a prior with Scott's model. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily anything to do with Scott, but what the other person I was practicing with said is when we do the demos in class, it seems easy because everybody knows kind of the structure and what we're doing. But they said when it's with a client, there's resistance. But if you start more from a motivational point, it'll seem more like a conversation rather than an inquisition.
I'm pretty sure the reason that people think that, because I don't feel that way. Like to me, it feels the exact same doing it on screen with my students as it does with my sessions, although the sessions are longer and obviously take more of my energy. Well, this takes a lot of energy as well. But the real answer to that, what was I going to say?
I was saying that their feel is different when they're with a client,
Oh yeah, the real reason is just because they have a different perception of it. They have a different perception of what's happening in the one versus the other.
or when you're practicing with, it's what Jody said before, when you're practicing with a colleague, there's not an expectation on us that we must be the expert, we must have an outcome. Holy shit, they're paying me. It's not moving fast enough, whatever. When we're practicing with our colleagues, if we mess up, we'll have a laugh and it's not really a big deal.
What
But
does
when
that
we
tell you? What
but
does
when
that
we have a client, we're sitting there, holy shit, they paid me $1,500 or 2 grand or whatever it may be.
Doesn't that make no sense since the client knows hundreds of times less
Correct.
than the colleague, and yet we're not worried about the colleague's evaluation? That's like bizarre, isn't it? Shouldn't it be reversed?
Yeah. Jody said it well.
I'm always shocked. I'm still to this day shocked at how little the clients understand the mind. Because I work with it all day, every day, and so do you. So to me and to you, it's really obvious. Like, well, I do X and Y because limiting beliefs, because I didn't deal with my trauma, because I don't know what else to do with my time, blah, blah, blah. But to the clients, this is all like a huge revelation.
Hmm.
So it seems in a way like we're trying to explain them level 20 when they really are at levels 1 and 2, and that would be sufficient for them. So it's kind of weird to think like that we owe the clients more than we owe our colleagues who know 500 times more. It's a bit of a strange reversal there. But so far, and we're going to take a break now in a minute. So far, what we've done, and I haven't added the theory yet, okay? There's going to be like a theoretical component that comes this afternoon in 20 minutes or so. But so far, what I've shown you is, let's do it together. The basic principles of level 1 are what? Basic principles, first principles. There's only a few, and they're by module, remember?
Find out what the problem is,
Yeah.
or the knot, look for unconscious moments, untie the knot.
Okay, so curiosity, that's how we do the investigation, and unconscious moments, that's how we decide what to say next. Curiosity, unconscious moments. Another way to say that is the hypothetical interview, the hypnotic interview. Okay, that's your level 1 proficiency. Your level 2 proficiency so far is, what is another principle to add? Curiosity, unconscious moments, and
Insight, motivation.
when you
So to
see
give them
exactly.
choices.
Exactly. When you see the opening for motivation, put gas on it. Don't just focus on problems. Don't just focus on untying. Listen to the response, leverage the response, and ask one of the questions off the 70 question list that allows you to move into a different space than just untying knots. The other principle with that is be even less of a therapist. Relax even more because you're not even worried about problems anymore. Now we're just worried about chilling out, seeing what's happening because all roads lead to Rome. So now we have even less to worry about, less to do. Any questions so far? Okay, let's take a 20-minute break and then we're going to talk about the theory behind how to decide what direction to move the conversation in, given that now you have not 10 possibilities, but 100 or 1,000. Because it's a little overwhelming, right? Like, okay, you go from ACH, which is like, what's the problem? Why is that a problem? Why is that important to you? Which seems very small. And now I'm saying, forget that. You don't need to worry about any of that anymore. You don't need to care about that. Now you can ask anything. Now you can open this possibility to any kind of questioning and still know that you're going to get to the subconscious moment anyway. But then it's overwhelming. Like, well, then what the fuck am I going to do? How am I going to figure out what to do next? Okay, I'm going to answer that for you in 20 minutes. Any questions before we do that? Okay, so I'll see you at 2:20. And Jody, let me know if I can help you or if you need to just message me on Facebook if I can do anything. But I would love it if you could participate. So see if you can fix it. Okay, I'm still recording. Oh yeah, go ahead. Question.
We go till 4 today or later?
Yeah,
When's
probably
the
4:30 or 5.
okay.
I'm gonna do this break and then I'll do a demo and then we'll have another break. But I mean, the demo and the next presentation together is probably around 2 hours and it's already 2:20. So 4:30, 4:45, 4:50.
Okay.
I don't know. I always talk too much, but let's take a break now so that we'll get back sooner. Any questions? Did I miss anything? Felix, exactly. Keep doing. I made the mistake of looking at my phone and then I saw that Diddy was sentenced today. Did you see that?
No, I'm
50,
not looking at my phone on purpose.
50 months in prison.
Yeah, I
Oh,
want to throw up.
well, too bad for you.
Makes me want to throw up.
4 years. It's not enough, but it's something.
No, it's something though.
I will take it. I mean, imagine that's a lot of years after living that kind of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I was glad to see that. Any questions? Any questions about hypnosis? Also, a $500,000 fine, which is
Oh,
not
that's peanuts.
peanuts
Peanuts.
for him.
Yeah. So, but it's something. They didn't just let them skate, so that's a good thing.
Oh, I think it's not insignificant.
No, my hope is that more will be revealed and more will be brought to task, I guess, or
It
punish
is
isn't
a
the
lot,
right
it
word.
is a lot of revelation, like for a public figure. So combining the embarrassment and humiliation with the prison sentence, it's starting to be something.
Hmm.
It is a wild story, though.
Yep. And
Wild is a good word.
I don't think it's done either.
Oh, me neither.
No.
You're right about that. Okay, welcome back. I see some of you are back. So, any questions so far? I'm building this weekend so that it makes sense to you. Okay,
Hmm.
so it's piece by piece. The next piece is going to be, I think, the most theoretical, and then we're going to work on combining it all together and do a demo so you can see it at work. And we'll do the same tomorrow. We're going to then really mix the level 1 and level 2. Today, I'm going to just focus on the level 2 skill. So, I don't know where everyone is, but maybe they're listening. This is what we're adding. Oh, did somebody write something?
Jill's just eating.
Okay, he's back on, but he's off camera. Cool. This is what we're adding to our options now is this new question list. And the new question list has who questions, what questions, when questions, how. We even have why, which remember before I said no why questions. But we're going to even now get rid of all of those rules about don't ask why questions and don't do this and don't do that because now there's no holds barred. So this means that you can say whatever you want as long as it's respectful and non-judgmental of the client. So that's part of why I set up that original frame, which is just be yourself, don't be therapeutic anymore. Because now, as long as you settle into that, you can pick from anywhere off of any of the sheets and you're still going to get to where you're going. So now you really don't have to worry about what to ask or when to ask it or what's the next question because I took all that pressure off of you. The last word here, internal questions. Does anyone know what those are? I don't think I taught those in level 1. I mean, all questions are internal in a sense because they make you go internal, obviously. But an internal question specifically would be any ideas? It's asking the client specifically to do some kind of internal inquiry. So we're now adding even more possibilities for the kinds of questions that we can ask. So you can go anywhere now. How would things be different? Is this your belief? Are you really ready for this? Where would you use this? I just read those 5 questions off the sheet in no particular order, one from each category. But do you see how they still made sense even though I didn't have a client in front of me? So that's the whole idea. Now it's like choose your own adventure is the way that I'm thinking about it. Is like before, we didn't really have so much choose your own adventure because it was more like follow the problem, see where the problem is leading you, untie, untie, untie. That's not really choose your own adventure. That's more like follow this map of the problem, which is a very powerful tool, and you should all work on it and still keep that close to your heart. But now what I'm saying is instead of that kind of hard-nosed, one unidirectional kind of providential, approach, we're going to do more of choose your own adventure, which is like, oh, I could pick from here, or I could pick from here, or I could ignore what they just said and go for a different question. So you can pick from anywhere on the list. Now, I'm going to add a level of complexity to it. So now what we're going to think about, instead of just these kind of gross movements, which are motivation, forward movement, or root cause, untying problems, backwards movement. Now I'm going to talk to you more about what is happening inside of those big movements. So you know how like the way that the planets move is like one planet moves in a big way, but then a little planet moves in a little way around the big planet, but from the perspective of Earth, you only see the little planet like moving back and forth. Does that make any sense to you? Probably not. But anyway, that's the perspective that I'm talking about taking on these sessions now too, which is look from a more macro perspective at where the planets are going. But then inside of each big planetary movement are these little movements. And this is what we're trying to track now with the client. So now I'm telling you, we're making the whole project more specific. It seemed so easy before. Oh, be curious, just follow your curiosity. And I always want you to go back to that and rely on that because that's your first principle. But now, to go faster, to get the clients through their problems faster, you're going to look at those little epicycles, which are the little planetary motions, and see those as like little pieces of conversation inside of the big conversation. And how are we going to study these little pieces of conversation is in these question cycles. So all you need to do is ask yourself at every juncture, every question, what kind of answer is this? Is it in this category, the black side on the left, or is it what we want, which is the pink side? Okay, let me break this down a little bit more. The only categories I taught in level 1 were these two, unconscious or conscious. That's it. Either it's an unconscious answer, which is dealing with the root cause, or it's a conscious answer, which is dealing with the symptom. That's all you learn in level 1. But now, as it turns out, that is just a umbrella topic for all kinds of other categories that you could see underneath that. For example, sometimes the client gives you a discouraged response, like Gilles just did. But I'm afraid to change my model. So he's a little bit discouraged there. He's also judging himself. He's also basing his answer on his past results. So those would be 3 categories that he revealed in that one answer, which give me an idea of where to go next. To me, the main problem that I heard, and this is of course based on intuition, which is what you get out of 101, the main thing I heard was he's thinking in terms of his past results. And why wouldn't he? He's been doing it for 30 fucking years, so of course he's thinking in that way. So when I'm realizing that he's stuck in this category, what my purpose is to move him from this one to this one. How do I do that? I look at my new palette, my new menu of questions, and I ask him something that takes him from the stuck category to the flowing category, which is the same thing as saying taking him from consciousness to unconsciousness, taking him from his stuck thought to his thinking thought, which is moving. So the other categories are somebody says something is discouraging or they feel discouraged. Well, then I know that what they need to get out of that is motivation. If they say something irrelevant, then what I want to take them to is something important to the context. This is actually very important because people will waste your time all day long distracting you from their problem because they don't want to deal with it, talking about irrelevant shit. Well, you could take an hour of your session to do that, or you could take 30 seconds or 5 seconds to realize, hey, this is irrelevant. Let's move into this one. So this chart is important for not only expanding your possibilities, but for saving time. Because any time you spend on the left is time wasted. And I don't mean wasted, in terms of the session overall, because sometimes that's just what the client gives you. But if you stay here for a whole question cycle, you're really not going to get anywhere. So this is the whole job of the conversational hypnotist, is to create this cyclical movement through these categories. So in a single session, a client might give you answer 1, thought, answer 2, irrelevant, answer 3, judgment, answer 4, back to thought, answer 5, back to judgment. And they will all kind of dance between categories. As you become familiar with your niche, which is another reason, by the way, it's important to have a niche, is because you'll find that your clients tend to repeat certain categories. Isn't that right? Addiction, Jody. What is the main category your clients repeat? Past results. I've always been a drinker. I've always been a overeater. What else?
Oh, judgment.
Yeah, which is what?
Oh, they're judging themselves. They're judging the people around them. They just stay stuck in what everybody else thinks a lot of the time.
And isn't it true that that's true for like 90% of your niche or 95?
Hmm.
This is why becoming a niche expert really matters, because you start to really identify like, oh, the kind of people who see me are always stuck here. So a lot of my job has to be questions directed towards this. So you see how now you're becoming an expert because you know, oh, this is the momentum that's needed. Oh, this is the momentum that's needed. And different characters and different problems and different um, sessions call for different directions. When somebody says something that betrays that they're confused, we're not going to ask them to give us an acceptance answer. We're just going to ask for some direction towards clarity. So, why this question cycle model? Where does this come from? The idea behind it is, of course, back to Milton Erickson, who is the great-great-grandfather of conversational hypnosis and hypnosis in general. The idea is when you sat with him, especially at the end of his career, you didn't even need to say anything, and he already had a sense of what to say to you. Well, how did he get that? There's something going on in the mechanism of his observation where he already knows what department or what neighborhood you're in. Based on that assessment, he's moving you to the opposite of that. That's what hypnosis is just the converse. So this is what we're getting good at in level 2, is understanding and appreciating this is where the client is, and this is where I want to take them. Instead of all I can do is untie knots to take them from point A to B, now I'm realizing I have all of these types of questions as vehicles to move through these to get ultimately from consciousness to unconsciousness. It would be just too easy if all we ever did was say, oh, the answer was conscious or the answer was unconscious. That's level 1. You do need to learn that first. But now we're getting more subtle and we're getting more specific. The idea of that is to cut down time spent on this side and also to give you a very clear answer to, well, what kind of question should I come up with next? So the question is no longer what's the right question. The question now is, what kind of answer did I get? Was it thought, stuck? Was it conscious, symptom? Was it discouraged? Was it irrelevant? Was it a belief? Was it confusing? Was it judgment? Was it past results? Whatever the answer to this is tells you, okay, this is where I want to take this person. That's a lot different than, oh, was the answer conscious or subconscious? Which is a gross generalization. But to get specific like this, you need that gross generalization first. So now we're getting down to question cycles inside of the main conversation, which are smaller. And it's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy because people will change their category every 5 minutes, every one question, every hour. Everyone's different. So you could cycle through like all of these in a session. You could cycle through 3 of these 40 times in a session. Like it's very hard to know in advance. So this is what we're going to do next is just a little demo on, well, it's not just a little demo, it's a demo using the categories. Do the categories make sense to you? Do you understand why we need them? Do you understand how to use them? Any questions about the categories or the new question sheet? So what are you going to do now when you hear somebody is stuck in a belief or a theory? How do you know what the next thing to do is?
Ask them if it's actually true.
Exactly. Ask them to clarify this so that you can find out what they're missing about the facts. That's right. What do you do if somebody is judging themselves? Or somebody else? Instead of asking them the usual ACH, well, where did you come up with that? How do you know? You're going to ask them which would work, by the way.
Who taught you that?
Pardon?
Who taught you that?
Yeah, who taught you that? Exactly. And how are you going to then use your motivation as part of that conversation?
What would happen if?
Yeah. What would you like instead of that?
Mhm.
How would it be without that? Exactly. How do you know, Jody, if the answer is a motivation question or an untying of knot question? Not the answer, the next question.
Because if it's a motivation question, it's not about the problem. If
How
it's
are you? Mhm.
if it's I lost the word.
Motivation?
Nope. If it's a
Or
problem, if it's a problem question, then it's like it's rooted in the problem.
yeah.
You're
If they
stuck.
give you an answer that's about the problem, then you're going to go towards the problem. If they're
Mhm.
going to indicate a knot in their answer, you're going to untie the knot or ask about the knot. If it's just judgment and it has nothing to do with the real problem, you don't need to investigate the problem at that moment. You need to investigate the judgment. That's how it becomes an epicycle, like a smaller question inside of the bigger.
Does this move towards acceptance if you ask a question like, how does this belief keep you stuck?
How does this belief, say that again?
Yeah, it's like if they're in judgment
Yep.
and say, how does this keep you stuck?
Yeah. And to me, that sounds
Because it's,
therapeutic. So ask it again in a more level 2 kind of casual way.
well, I guess I'm just looking towards judgment.
Yeah.
Uh,
But so ask it like a
or
regular,
acceptance, sorry. I'm
ask it
trying to
like,
move towards
yeah,
acceptance.
you're doing it right, but ask it like a regular person instead of from but it's really important. That's part of the lesson today. Instead of doing it from the language of the therapist, ask it like you would ask a friend.
What's that doing for you?
Exactly. So what's the problem with that? How's that affecting you? How's that working out for you is a good one I like to ask. Oh,
Mhm.
really? So how's that working out for you? You like that? And then they're like, no.
Doc,
But if you ask it the way you did, which I already can't remember, then it creates that psychotic insight where they're like, I don't know. But that's the whole idea is now we're just doing like the casual kind of